The existence of the universe has always been a matter that humanity was curious about, to discover the how and why of our existence. While the why is a matter that's took upon by philosophers, the how has always been a scientific pursuit for us for the most part. Over the years, many theories came into existence, some known, some unknown, but the one that's known to most of us is the Big Bang theory. It explains the creation of the known universe as an explosion of space which may have happened billions or trillions of years ago or much before. Well, I have something in store for that theory. The Big Bang is not an explosion of matter moving outward to fill an empty universe. Instead, space itself expands with time everywhere and increases the physical distance between two comoving points. In other words, the Big Bang is not an explosion in space, but rather an expansion of space. As it is described, the Big Bang theory points to the expansion of the very fabric of space, an explosion which led to the formation of the world as we know it, with the rules that govern the existence of matter and energy and everything in between. And because of that, the way it's described, Big Bang formed an image in our minds, a physical explosion that happened billions of years ago. But did it really happen that way? Sure, when you think of an explosion, the clear image of an orange fireball comes into your mind, or even a mushroom cloud up in the sky. But those typical explosions that happen in the world or in movies are nothing similar to what the Big Bang actually is. It's not alike because of one defining factor. The Big Bang is not an explosion in space, but of space. So can we actually measure the expansion? Can we truly say that the space is expanding at a particular rate? Of course, we can say it for the objects in space, but we can't actually measure the expansion of space because we are space. It'd be trying to measure our velocity with no reference point, which is impossible. In other words, we have no proof whatsoever that the Big Bang happened billions of years ago. Because humans measure everything in relative terms, even the absolute values we set are relative, as a limit that we can't reach, like absolute OK in temperature. What I'm getting at is that the explanations given for the Big Bang, the proofs we try to obtain among other things, are clashing with themselves because we've been trying to bring a clear and disciplined explanation to an otherwise chaotic universe. The entire universe is in chaos. Even if we go inwards to the infinitesimal scales where particles pop in and out of existence, or outwards to the infinite scales of the universe where the worlds transcend with mysteries, chaos is the only constant. Having said that, even if the Big Bang may be self-contradictory, it's not too far behind the true answer to how the universe came into existence. For that, Einstein has gifted us with his theories, which just needs to be applied to the core idea behind Big Bang a little differently. According to Einstein's theories, the space and time are just two sides of the same coin. For example, it limits the velocity attainable in the universe not just by changing the time, but space. And when you go slow, the opposite happens, but still both the time and space changes what we measure. In other words, space and time balances each other, giving us not too much nor too little of either of them. As such, space and time can technically be treated as one, which brings me back to my point. The Big Bang is not just an explosion of space, but an explosion of space-time. If you consider it like that, new windows for its explanations open up. When we represent something in the real world by mapping them in 2D or 3D, we use axes. If I say there's a point in space that's the absolute origin of the space, even if we can't locate it, you wouldn't question its possibility because it's easy for our minds to conceive that idea, as we can see it as such. If I say an explosion happens with matter pouring outwards and its ripple effects like shock waves from the origin of the explosion in all the directions, you wouldn't question it because you know it's true with proof. But what if I said that the Big Bang, the creation of the universe, the explosion of space-time, also happened in all the directions? Would you even believe me? Let alone just questioning it. In case you don't seem to find a problem with that, let's point out something. Explosion of space-time in all directions would imply a negative time. That's right. A time that flows backwards, not just forwards like how we feel time, but a different existence. The Bible tells the when of the creation as just a beginning, which is an ambiguous word if not given an axis of dependency. We could assume it as the beginning of time, but an origin of space-time is more fitting, which in this case is the perspective of God, who's without time, who created time. That would mean that the creation of the entire universe as it split into 6 days could have happened much differently than how we think it did. It could even mean that we're still in creation, or it could even stretch as far as the 6 days of creation would exist till the end of the world, which could bring about the 7th day. Why am I telling this? Well, to come to an inconceivable point of origin of space-time, the creation of the universe happened in the Holy Week, particularly the 3 days, the Good Friday, Holy Saturday, and Easter. Why do I think that? A few reasons. In order to get into that, there's a scientific concept that needs mentioning: virtual particles. They are particles caused by quantum fluctuations and have some energy but mathematically nothing because they disappear as soon as they appear, governed by the uncertainty principle. There are studies that explain that virtual particles could have been the cause of creation of the universe, where the tiny particles got a sustainable amount of energy to expand into the gigantic universe that we see today due to doubly special relativity. But the study also tells that if it's so, universe is basically nothing, an elegantly ordered nothing. For nothing to exist as not nothing, it has to be balanced somehow, a combination of positive and negative particles, opposites, matter and antimatter, because it's also said that Big Bang caused creation of more matter than antimatter, but both were created. The matter combined with antimatter that were present to create huge quantities of energy, which further aided in the creation of the universe. But if that's the case, how can the universe be balanced? There's an imbalance in the formation of the universe between matter and antimatter. I say the balance occurs as the matter normally exists in positive time, while antimatter exists in the negative flow of time with negative energy. As for the existence of matter as well as antimatter at the origin, well, the origin is a 0 point, not positive nor negative, but a combination of both. Now, coming back to the inconceivable point of origin, the Big Bang was caused due to a quantum phenomenon. We know that quantum mechanics is quite different from classical mechanics, with the rules having basically nothing in common. Why is that? Physicists would say it's just how it is. But I say classical mechanics have those set of rules because of the way that the macroscopic universe came into existence, i.e. quantum fluctuations could have formed a universe that works very much differently than ours. But we got this. A universe governed by conservation of mass and energy. A universe where energy can take different forms. A universe where energy and matter can change between themselves, following certain rules. A universe governed by life and death at its core, with balance between the two, and neither can exist without the other. Crucifixion implying death and resurrection implying life, happening in the opposite order to create a complete flow, a continuous flow of life into us. The origin spanning 3 days? It's a story for another time. A scientific blow like that, in a not very scientific way I know, would need much more collaboration than that. As I previously mentioned, the Big Bang was technically an explosion of everything. It may not seem like an explosion because it was a quantum event, taking shape in unprecedented ways. And science also has doubts on whether the quantum particles have a tendency to jump through time and space. I say they do. An explosion would have a ripple effect, right? What could have been the ripples effects of Big Bang where the quantum particles which can jump through space-time are involved? The answer to that would be a ripple through space and time, but not exactly present everywhere and to everyone. There could have been ripples that carried the effects and knowledge of events through time. For positive time, even if it was experienced by someone, no one would bat an eye because it's past. We would explain it away as high intelligence to discover what had happened with utmost precision, or just intuition. But what about the ripples that happen backwards? It's an experience and a knowledge of future that travels backward. People getting glimpses into the future in the past, you know them. Prophets, for centuries, there were prophecies about the events that happens in the Holy Week, and for the events leading up to it, and everything that happens in the world, every miracle, every interference by God, there would be a scientific explanation, because science follows the rules that God set even if unknowingly, which means that there's no sense in his acts being unscientific. So even for prophecies, there should be scientific explanations. This could be it. And for ripples through space, it has significant footprint at the time of origin itself. It's written how the world behaved on that day, with earthquakes and storms and eclipse and raising of the dead. Who knows what else? Saying the possibilities and collaborations for my point, it would take forever. I'll just conclude with just one more. In order to truly prove the creation of the universe, a better independent quantity is needed, because while time and space, with entropy and gravitation and magnetism and everything else, can define some of the functioning of the universe, none of them are independent, they're interdependent. What if there was a quantity common to all? A quantity that has something to do directly with the quantum world? Is it possible that we're not only changing the future with everything we do, but also the past? Speaking of the past, yes, I think time travel is possible. But do we need to be antimatter first for traveling to the past, or something in between? Maybe. But anyway, it wouldn't be like anything we know because the entire universe is a chaos in its essence.